Now I want to talk about a condition that can cause almost every cardiovascular disease. This is the vessel. And in the vessel, you have a lot of blood cells and other things happily moving around. But if you smoke, if you have high blood pressure, you eat too much salt, you live in a pollutant area, or high blood sugar, you have this risk factor that damage your vessel wall. Now your vessel wall is damaged. Your body has to fix it. The process of fixing a tissue is called inflammation. Inflammation is the start of healing. Without inflammation, there's no healing. So it is required for fixing a tissue. Your body will release something we call LDL, low density lipoprotein cholesterol, LDL. LDL carries a lot of fat and they deposit the fat into the damaged site. Why fat? First, the fat is the energy, right? If you want to fix something, you need energy. The second reason is that the fat is the building block of your cell membranes. So you fix tissue, you need to build cell membranes. So fat is perfect. Also, fat is important for a lot of metabolism. So it makes a perfect reason to use fat to fix a tissue. Just dropping the fat into the tissue is not enough. So LDL will directly fill this hole. All right, so your body releases a lot of LDL to the damaged site to fill the hole, and then it can be oxidized to become something we call foam cells. The foam cells are like foams, right? So it's hard, but it's not very hard. And your body will also make something even better to protect this site. It moves the smooth muscle cells to the top and then work with your platelets and your white blood cells to form this fibrous cap. A fibrous cap is like a wall that protects this damaged site for it to recover. All right, now it is recovered. You fixed it. You need to get rid of this foam cell. Otherwise, it can make the vessel narrower, and then the blood pressure at this site will increase a little bit. And then we just talked about the high blood pressure is also a risk factor that can damage the vessel wall. So you may actually create another foam cell there. And it can narrow down the vessel and eventually block it. If the vessel is delivering blood to your heart and you block it, then you will have heart attack. And if the vessel is delivering blood to your brain, then you will have stroke. So it is not fun at all. Your body has to get rid of this foam cell after it does its job. What your body does is that it produces something we call HDL, high density lipoprotein cholesterol. So it does something opposite to LDL. Instead of dropping the fat into tissue, it pick up the fat from the tissue and then get rid of this foam cell. This is the happy ending, and this is what our body is supposed to do. But unfortunately, a lot of people don't get to this point. Instead, they are here. And then eventually, you build more foam cells, and then you can even grow these foam cells to become bigger and bigger, and eventually get stroke, get heart attack. And the process of building these foam cells and making them bigger and bigger is called atherosclerosis. Atherosclerosis is the process of narrowing and hardening your vessels, and eventually your vessels get blocked, and then you may die from cardiovascular disease. So these are the three major players for inflammation and atherosclerosis. So let me ask you a question. If a person has atherosclerosis, who is to blame among these three? Is it LDL that create that foam cell, or is it the HDL that doesn't come to pick up those fat from the foam cell, or is it the risk factors to damage the vessel wall to start everything with? You know the answer? It has to be the risk factors, right? If you don't damage the vessel wall, there's no need for LDL to come here to fill this hole, and there's no need for HDL to pick up those cholesterols or fat from the tissue. So the real problem is the risk factors. So you should not smoke, you should exercise more, you should eat healthy. What about LDL? You have heard LDL before. Some people heard that it is called bad cholesterol, right? You know LDL is the bad cholesterol. Is it really bad? Think about what it does, all right? So there's a damage, and your body produces LDL to fix the damage, to repair the damage. So is it bad? No, it's like firefighters. If you walk on a street and you see a lot of firefighters, do you blame the firefighters for the fire? Or you will say, oh, good, you are coming here to fix the problem, to put down the fire. They are here to put down the fire, right? So if you see a lot of firefighters, what does that mean? It means the fire is bigger and the problem is worse, right? Same idea. If you draw your blood and then you see a lot of LDL inside your blood, what does that mean? It means something really bad is happening inside your body. So we call them bad cholesterol, because if you see a lot of LDL, then that means something bad is happening inside your body, right? But LDL is not really bad, so you need to understand this. If I ask you to pick the second person to blame for atherosclerosis, other than risk factors, who will you pick? It's not LDL, because they are firefighters. You cannot pick them for the problem. They're coming to fix the problem, right? So the second person for the problem to blame is actually the good cholesterol, HDL. HDL are called good cholesterol, but they are the second person to blame. Why? All right, think about this. If you have foam cells, you have those foam cells everywhere, and you don't have HDL coming to pick those fat and clear those foam cells, then you have heart attack, you have stroke. So not having enough HDL is the second problem, other than damage the vessel wall, right? All right, why are there so many people who don't have enough HDL to pick up those fat to clear those foam cells? Because HDL requires exercise and consuming dietary fibers to be produced. You need to eat dietary fibers from vegetables and fruits, and you need to do exercise for your body to produce HDL. I will explain later. But think about this. Do you eat enough vegetables and fruits? Probably not, right? You are athletes, you probably exercise enough. But once you graduate from college and you are not pursuing a career in athletics, what will happen to you? You probably will quit exercising, right? You don't exercise as much as when you are in school anymore. And that happens to a lot of student athletes. So that's a problem, right? So in our modern lifestyle, we don't eat enough dietary fibers. We don't exercise enough. So we don't produce enough HDL, those good cholesterol that clear those foam cells. So we get to the problem of those foam cells staying there and then eventually block the vessel and cause stroke and heart attack. These are the steps of the atherosclerosis. I simplify it into 4 steps, but it's more complicated than this. All right, the first is the risk factors damage the vessel wall. And then the second is that LDL is produced and recruited to fix the tissue. And then they are oxidized by something we call ROS, reactive oxygen species. That those are the oxidants that can help with the foam cell to form. And then your smooth muscle cells and your platelets will work together to make those fibrous cap at the top to protect this area. So it's hardened. So eventually your vessels are hardened and narrowed.